Hello and welcome to this week's News Desk with me, Chris Stafford, alongside Nancy Gillen. And this is Season 4, Episode 3 already, and we're recording on January the 19th. Well, Nancy, it's been a freezing weekend over here. We've got another snowstorm where we had on the weekend, and boy, is it cold. I wish I had skis to go out there, or skates even, really, because it's dangerous to walk or do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty hazardous, really. But, I mean, you could just maybe follow in the footsteps of some of your favourite athletes and, ski around.
Yeah, it's just put some skis on. You do some cross-country skiing. Yeah, but you haven't had to put up with these kind of conditions, have you, really? It hasn't been too bad. You told me earlier that you've still been able to run.
Yeah, it's been quite a mild winter so far and haven't had any snow yet. And, yeah, being able to go out and run. I mean, probably the darkness is the only obstacle, but I've just found a route which is on well-lit streets. So overall, it hasn't been too bad. And, yeah, being able to kind of consistently run, which is what you want.
Yes. Yeah. Just remind everybody, because you're a London Marathon veteran now. For anybody who's just catching up with the show, any new listeners, Nancy ran her first marathon last year, the London Marathon. And this year, you're going to do what, Nancy? Well, yeah, I kind of got a bit of a schedule. So I've got going to do a half marathon in March. Not really at a big event or anything. Just there's a few in London where they just do them on a regular basis and you get an official time. So I'm going to aim for a sub 2 hour half marathon, just as something to kind of keep me motivated over winter. In May, I'm doing a trail half marathon with my friends in the Lake District. And then I've signed up for the ballot again for London Marathon, which is in October. If I don't get that, then I'll reassess. There's a few other options, like the Yorkshire Marathon maybe. So I think I'll find out about the London Marathon quite soon. I think it's in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, I'll be able to see what I'm doing later in the year then. Listen to you, you're becoming quite the pro athlete now.
Yeah, it's quite nice having those dates in the diary because it's something to work towards. I think,
yeah,
especially in winter when it's dark and a bit wet and stuff, and you're like, oh, what's the point of going out? If you've got that, if you're working towards that, it's easier to get up and go, I think.
Well, definitely. And now you know that you can do it, right? You had that success last year. You completed the London Marathon, first attempt. So now that you know you're capable of this, it must make you, ambitious, I would imagine, and a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I was saying, doing the sub 2 hour half marathon, I think that's just kind of want to improve on my time. And like you said, now I've kind of got that foundation of doing the London Marathon last year. I can build on that this year.
All right. Well, we'll be following you, of course, all through the season and bringing updates on your training, of course, when you get to competition too. So good luck with that, Nancy. If any of you are joining us for the first time, this is our weekly news show, and we try and get our arms around the news headlines every week. And of course, there's plenty of news when it comes to women's sports, and we've got the Beijing Winter Olympics just around the corner, just over 2 weeks away, 2 weeks and a day away. So that will be particularly interesting this year because of the pandemic. There's been lots of restrictions, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. And a lot of those athletes will be coming to the latter part of their season on the World Cup Tour in the winter sports. And one of those is Monobob and Bobsled. And you'll have heard if you listen to the show every week, you'll know that we've been following the two American, particularly the American bobsledders and monobobbers, Elana Meyers Taylor and Kaylee Humphries. Well, they had a fantastic weekend last weekend in St. Moritz. They finished out the Women's Monobob World Cup Series on top by finishing first and second, respectively. And then Elana went on to secure the overall women's monobob title with her silver medal performance there. And Kaylee, alongside Sylvia Hoffman, finished fourth in the two women bobsled World Cup final, finishing just 2 hundredths of a second from the medals. Elana and Keisha Love were fifth, and it was enough for Elana to then take the overall two-woman bobsled World Cup title by 19 points, and that was just one day after she had won the Monobob. So a fantastic roundup to her season, and for the Americans now. And Elana has subsequently earned her ticket to the Olympic Games. That will be her 4th Olympics. So that should be pretty exciting, Nancy. When you come off that kind of form, it fills you with confidence, and she's obviously on a roll. She's taken to the Monobob, that's making its debut in Beijing, and she's obviously taken to that like a duck to water.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, just that confidence boost of being, in a winning position just weeks before going into the Winter Olympics can only be a good thing. And it's probably quite, like a psychological boost over her opponents as well, because she's beaten them all just weeks before going into the Olympic arena. So yeah, congrats to her.
That should be really interesting to see if she can continue to carry that form to Beijing. Well, another sport which I'm particularly fond of is skiing. And Lara Gut-Behrami, one of my favourite skiers, the Swiss girl, she won the downhill last weekend in Zauchensee in Austria by beating Germany's Kira Weidel by 0.10 of a second. And the Austrian Ramona Siebenhofer was third. And what a fantastic race it was, Lara. Nancy. Lara was in terrific form, and she skied beautifully. It was a fabulous course with a super steep start to give the women really early speed on the course. And now the current leader in the downhill standings is Italy's Sofia Goggia, who actually fell on the technical part of that course and unfortunately was uninjured and was able to ski down once she got her breath back after crashing into the safety net there. The American Breezy Johnson, who's currently runner-up in the downhill standings, she sat the race out with a knee injury in what I think they described on the team as an abundance of caution, since the Beijing Olympics are now just 2 weeks away. So that was a really, really exciting. That was Saturday, the downhill, and then on the Sunday was the giant slalom, and the Italian Federica Brignone won that ahead of Switzerland's Corinne Suter by 0.04 of a second, with Austria's Ariane Radler rounding off the podium. And Sweden's Sarah Hector, you remember we talked about her, she was had a winning streak the previous weekend, Nancy. She still tops the giant slalom standings, with American Mikaela Shiffrin and then Frances Tessa-Wardley in second and third place, respectively. Now, in the overall standings, it's Mikaela, then Petra Vlhova, and then Sofia Goggia. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as we get close to the Olympic Games, because not all of them will go back to Europe and finish off the World Cup season. Some of them, I think, tend to taper off after an Olympic Games and don't finish out the World Cup season, but we'll see who does. So that's the skiing for this past weekend. Now the girls head to Cortina d'Ampezzo, they'll be there already, of course, for another downhill and Super G this weekend. So really coming to the sort of kind of climax of World Cup, Nancy, and then we've got the Olympic Games as well to look forward. So if you like winter sports, my goodness, this is the time to hang around. Really, really exciting stuff. Who do Great Britain have? I mean, I know you had Lizzie Yarnall, didn't you, in the skeleton? She was really, really good, but isn't she retired?
Yeah, she's actually doing the BBC coverage for the game. So yeah, she has retired. I think, well, at least Christie as well, who the short track speed skater who has come heartbreakingly close to Olympic medals. She has also called a day. I think she announced it a few weeks ago, but said she didn't really retire, but she said she's taken her career in a different direction. So I don't really know what that meant, but I mean, she's not going to be at the Olympics. But I think it's Charlotte Banks. She's the one to watch for Britain. She's a snowboarder and competes in snowboard cross, and I think is the reigning world champion, and also has a few World Cup wins as well under her belt. So I think it's looking likely that she will be getting gold. So I think she's probably the one to watch for Britain.
And don't you have the first chef de mission for female chef de mission, I should say, for the Beijing Olympics?
Yes, we do, and I can't remember her name right now, but it is. Yeah, I think it's. it's probably going to be one of those Olympic Games where it's quite a lot of success from our female athletes, and then to have the chef de mission also be a woman is very positive.
Yeah, I think it's her name is Georgina Hartland, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
I know. I just know that name because she was on BBC Radio 4's Woman's Hour, talking about that being the first female chef de mission. So good luck to her. That's marvellous. Now, another sport that's really taking the headlines and it stole the headlines for the last couple of weeks, really, for all the wrong reasons. But, of course, just this week, just yesterday, as we record, the Australian Open began down under. And Emma Raducanu, the US Open champion, got off to a good start, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, I had the chance to watch that this morning, which was good. The timings worked out for that. And she was up against Sloane Stephens, who won the US Open in 2017. So it was actually two winners of the US Open in recent years. But yeah, Sloane Stephens is a bit of an interesting player because she had a period where she was, really good. She won the US Open and then was world number 3. But kind of has struggled, I think, since, it's fair to say. I think she's now kind of in the world number 60s. But regardless, I think definitely that fixture was viewed as a tough draw for Raducanu, especially when you kind of consider, she's US Open winner, but her, experience on the WTA tour, let alone Grand Slam experience, is still quite limited. But yeah, Raducanu didn't really seem fazed by that and won the first set 6-love. So it was a very emphatic. She completed the first set in something like 17 minutes. It was, Sloane Stephens looked pretty out of it at that point. But then she came back and won the second set, and then Raducanu kind of regained her dominance in the third set and won the match overall. So it was I think Raducanu showed a lot of resilience. And, if she can play the way she played in the first set, throughout the tournament, she could definitely go quite far. She's got a kind of draw in the second round. She's playing a player from Montenegro. And I think, she will be expected to win that. It's not kind of like this draw against Sloane Stephens where it was a bit uncertain. So, hopefully she'll at least get to the third round and then we can see where she goes from there.
Yeah, but it was a bit disappointing for Leylah Fernandez, of course, who faced Emma Raducanu in the final of the US Open. She lost her way. It was quite a bad defeat for her, really, because she lost to the 133rd ranked wildcard player. That was a bit of an upset for her then.
Yeah, it was kind of, this wildcard, Madison Inglis, was almost kind of maybe a bit of a reflection of kind of what Raducanu was doing in the US Open. And of course, Fernandez lost to Raducanu in the final. So yeah, that result, Fernandez losing to Inglis, was, I'd say, probably one of the upsets of the first round, because, Fernandez won, didn't win, but she got so far in the US Open that I think people thought this year she could really kind of prove herself. So to go out in the first round of the Australian Open to a wild card, like, no disrespect to Inglis, that would have been very disappointing for Fernandez.
Now, last week we talked about Anya Sabalenka losing her confidence and losing her stroke in the warm-up games before the Australian Open, but she managed to pull her way back and rallied in the first round. Yeah, I mean, this I was looking at the result of this, kind of following it, because it was this morning as well, and I was thinking Sabalenka was going out because she lost the first set and then she was down like 2-love or 3-love in the second set. But yeah, managed to turn it around again. And yes, she beat Storm Sanders. That game was against. But still, I think definitely question marks over Sabalenka. I know she was struggling with her serve again. I think last week there were clips of her doing an underarm serve, and I think that came out again in this match. So she's definitely not 100% there. And
Yeah, I think if she comes up against better, again, no disrespect to Sanders, but Sabalenka is likely going to come up against better opposition, and she's not going to be able to kind of get away with the struggles that she's having when she does. So, yeah, still some question marks over Sabalenka.
Yeah, fair to say that we could face her serve if she serves underarm, but you can't get away with that, can you, at a Grand Slam?
No, definitely not, especially if you want to go far.
Yeah. Now, who else has impressed you? Who else have you been watching in that early round?
I think Barty, unsurprisingly, has been very impressive. I think personally Barty's going to win it just because it seems like the stars have aligned for her, really. She's in brilliant form and has the home crowd behind her. I think Osaka's been very impressive so far as well, having not played for a while. I think she seems to come back. She seems to be in a very confident mood. So I think she's definitely one to watch as well. And then Iga Swiatek as well. I think she's a very interesting player and is one of these teenage Grand Slam winners, having won the French Open in 2020. So yeah, I think she's quite an exciting player as well, and she's been looking good. So yeah, it's definitely shaping up to be a good tournament. Already some upsets, already some players looking brilliant. So I'm excited to kind of keep watching it as the days go by.
Well, we should mention that Sabalenka is actually the second seed, and the third seed is Gabina Muguruza. Now, she played against Lara Gut-Behrami and beat her in straight sets. Yeah, it's an impressive result there, and I think as well she's just been in brilliant form. She won the WTA finals in December, and moved up to world number 3 and is on a bit of a winning streak. So she's again another one to watch, and like you said, third seed as well. So obviously ranked very highly in the tournament. Okay, well, that's a roundup of the Australian Open, and we'll have a lot more for you this time next week as we get into that final. Well, we'll be getting close to the Final Four this time next week, so we'll keep an eye on that for you and bring you our thoughts next week on the show. Well, we're going back to the Winter Olympics now, to the two-time Olympic gold medalist Shim-Suk Hee. Sim-Suk Hee, have I pronounced that right? The skater who's been banned for 2 months by the Korean Skating Union, and she launched a last-ditch legal appeal to compete in Beijing. Yep. So this is I think we've spoken about this story when it first came out, but she was banned by the Korean Skating Union because there were text messages from Pyeongchang, the Winter Olympics in 2018. These text messages were leaked in October of last year. And in the text, she sent them to coaching staff and teammates and suggested that she was going to make her compatriot Choi Min-young, the female Stephen Bradbury, at the Pyeongchang 2018 Olympic Games. Bradbury was known for when he competed at the Salt Lake City 2002 Winter Olympics. All his opponents crashed in the final, and Bradbury went on to win gold. And as an Australian, that was obviously quite a significant moment. So Shim, and then in the match in the race even at Pyeongchang, Shim and Choi crashed with the former disqualified and the latter missing out on a medal. So essentially, when these texts were leaked in October, it kind of came across like Shim had deliberately tricked Choi all those years ago in 2018, and she subsequently received a ban from the Korean Skating Union because she had damaged. Well, the KSU's lawyers said that she had damaged the sport. So because of that ban, she's now going to miss out on Beijing happening next month. So she's appealed that ban, and I think they're just waiting now for a verdict to be heard on that. I think it's important to note that she could still miss out on competing at Beijing because even if
her ban is overturned, the Korean skating union still make the final decision on who makes the team. And it does seem quite unlikely that they would, have this ban, regardless of whether it was appealed or not. Seeing as they ban her, they probably then would be unlikely to select her for the Olympic team. But I suppose you never know. So I think that's one to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Well, staying with Beijing, the organising committee have announced already this week that the public will not be allowed to attend the Olympics. It's going to be like Tokyo all over again, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not too surprised about this. I think they'd already banned international spectators, so this was domestic spectators. But I think, judging by how strict China have been throughout the whole pandemic, especially when it comes to sporting events, I think the Winter Olympics is going to be more or less the first sporting event that China hosts since the pandemic began back in end of 2019, start of 2020. They've basically just confirmed that there won't be any spectators. There will be some tickets available, and that will be part of an adapted program that will invite groups of spectators to be present on site during the games. So I think that sounds very like it would be very limited, and not really sure how many people are going to be involved in that. Unfortunately, it's going to be another Olympics without any fans. Which I think, when we go back to the pandemic starting in, 2 years ago, I don't think many people thought would be in this position. But I suppose the safety of everyone involved is the main thing. And if, the organisers believe that this ensures the safety of everyone involved, then I suppose it has to be done.
Now, the name Salima Mukansanga may not mean much to anybody, but she's a woman that's making history in football, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. So she's become the first female referee at the ongoing Africa Cup of Nations, the football tournament. And she's... there's 4 women that have travelled to the tournament to officiate, but she's the only one that's going to be a central referee. So she, kind of took centre stage earlier this week, and she gave an interview to ESPN about her kind of career and stuff, and it's a really good read. She has previously officiated matches at a high level, so she was referee at the Tokyo Olympics and the women's football tournament. She was referee at the Women's World Cup in France in 2019. But this is kind of, I suppose, in terms of, attention, this is a step up because she's doing this men's tournament, which is quite prestigious and a lot of people watch it. It's a really interesting interview to read. There's a bit at the end that I found probably the most interesting is she was initially... So she just really loved playing football, and then realised she kind of also liked being, that person of influence on the pitch and the person that the players respected. So she was interested in officiating. And she was actually initially rejected by the Rwandan FA on account of her age, having left secondary school and gone straight to them about joining a referee's course. So she taught herself all the basics and the laws of the games, and then was eventually given the opportunity to join the referee's course. So she's obviously very motivated, has, loved football for so long, and it's great to see her achieve this level of success.
It really is, good for her. As she said, the laws of the game are the same, right? Yeah. And it whether it's men or women, but I think she's really making her mark there. And I love how she's trying to empower women too. She said she wants other women to support her, and other women referees and women all over the world, because the preparation's the same, and they have the courage to succeed. And I think it's a tremendous story. It's a good read, so recommend that. That link to that story will be in our show notes, as always, with all the stories that we cover here at withsports.com. So if you want to read more about Salima Mukansanga, you'll find it there. And you'll also find the links to all the results that we talk about here on the show too at withsports.com. All right, we're going to move on to another football story. This is Barcelona and Real Madrid now. This is the real hotspot of European women's football, isn't it?
Yep. So, yeah, Barcelona and Real Madrid, they're playing each other in the Women's Champions League quarterfinal in March. And I mean, yeah, that when those two teams play, it's called the El Clasico. It's it's one of the biggest rivalries in football. And in women's football, that hasn't quite, come across because Real Madrid are only a recent team. They were only kind of created, I suppose, in 2018. So that rivalry isn't nowhere near as intense as the men's, but they are slowly becoming a better team. And with that, I think comes the rivalry. And also putting it in the context of a Women's Champions League quarterfinal, a knockout match, even though it's over 2 legs, it's still, there's still a lot riding on it. So Barcelona are hosting the first leg of the quarterfinal at Camp Nou, the massive football stadium in Barcelona. It's actually the biggest football stadium in Europe. I think its capacity is something like 99,000. And yeah, so they put tickets on sale, I think this time last week, and they all sold out in 5 days.
I was just going to ask, could they possibly fill a stadium of that size? But clearly they can.
Yeah, I don't think they've... I think the top level, for whatever reason, they didn't put the tickets on sale, but it's still, as far as I know, and Barcelona still haven't confirmed this, as far as I know, it's at least 85,000 tickets sold.
They probably didn't sell the top tier because of potential altitude sickness.
Yeah, well, but apparently it is very steep. and also there's, at the moment, there's a 70,000 attendance cap in Catalonia because of COVID. And I think they are just presuming, I don't know, that this cap is lifted by March. So maybe they didn't want to oversell massively in case they had to take, however many tickets off people. So, but it seems like it's going to be at least 70,000 depending on the restrictions, if not 85,000 plus. If it is 85,000, this would be a new record for the largest women's football crowd ever. So the current record belongs to USA and Japan, when 80,000 people watched the London 2012 Olympic final at Old Trafford. If it's lower than that, it's still breaking quite a few records, and it will almost definitely, in my opinion, break the record for the largest crowd at a domestic women's football match, which was 60,739. That was set in 2019 when Barcelona played Atletico Madrid in Madrid. So, it's, kind of, there's a bit of uncertainty about how many tickets have actually been sold, but it seems like either way, it's going to be a record-breaking attendance in some way, and it's going to be a historic event, and I think it's going to be a great match. And I've actually got tickets for it, so I'm actually going to go to Barcelona for that.
Woohoo! When is that again? Yeah, remind us.
It's end of March, so it's March the 30th.
Okay. Oh, that's exciting. So you're going to do a report for us as well from...
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Yeah, just having a bit of a holiday. I've never been to Barcelona, so...
that'll be fun for you then.
Yeah, really fun.
Meanwhile, thinking of your home club, Arsenal, they had some good news this week because Tobin Heath is back and available after her injury, as well as Leah Williamson. There's a few there. It's going to be a much more competitive side when they play. Will they play Manchester United?
Yeah, that's right, in the Continental Cup tomorrow.
And when is that?
That is tomorrow evening.
Wednesday evening. Okay.
Yeah, Wednesday evening. Yeah.
All right. Wednesday evening. So that's good news for them, isn't it then? I mean, particularly Tobin Heath. Once that broke on the Twitter sphere, it just blew up. People love Tobin Heath. Yeah,
they do. She's very popular. I think, obviously, she's got the US WNT fans. But also, I think from an Arsenal perspective, it's just a big boost to have her back in the team. Arsenal have been slightly struggling off late, so to have a player of her caliber back is really good news. So yeah, like you said, it was a very popular piece of information.
Yeah, that came out this week. So is that a home game? Are you going?
It is a home game, yeah, but I'm not going. I'm busy tomorrow evening, so I'm actually going to miss that. match, which is a shame. But
Arsenal, I thought it was just, one of those things. If Arsenal played at home, the world stood still.
Yeah, it was quite hard when you follow both the men and the women's because they play all the time. It's just constant football.
All right. Well, I also want to give a shout out to Katie Stengel, who hosted a show here at With Sports a while ago. And Katie now plays for Liverpool. She scored her first goal in her opening game there against, was it Manchester City?
I don't think it would be Man City, just because they're in the league above. I think potentially. Let me have a quick look.
Oh, she's having a quick look. Just to get this right, because this is a second league. This is not the main league then.
Yeah, so they're in the Championship, which is like the league below. Oh, so it was against Watford.
Oh, against Watford.
She scored, the only goal of the game. She scored the winner.
Yeah, it was a header. I did see it. It was a really crafty little header from a corner, from a long corner. So just explain to everybody who doesn't know the English league system that there are two actual leagues.
Yeah, well, I suppose more than two, but in terms of the two kind of like the top two is the Women's Super League, which is all professional. There's 12 teams in that league, and then underneath is the Championship, which is another 12 teams. So only one team gets relegated from the WSL and only one team gets promoted from the Championship. So it's very competitive in that sense, because say in the men's game, you've got 3 teams going down and 3 coming back up. So that it's very fine margins. There's not much chance for movement. But Liverpool are currently top of the Championship. So they're looking quite likely to be promoted next season, in which case Stengel will then be playing in the Women's Super League. Really interesting move there. I think the Championship is a very competitive league anyway. Like I said, everyone's vying for that top spot and to go up into WSL. But I think Liverpool, to make that kind of signing, just shows their ambition at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll try and catch up with it then. So Manchester United, I know, but Manchester City are always in also the WSL.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
All right, so you can tell which side of the pond I live on, can't you? All right. Well, good luck to Katie. I think that's a tremendous move for her. Really pleased for her. We're going to move on to actually something which is quite interesting. I saw you sent this over to me, the Forbes highest paid female athletes of 2021, because we've got a mix of sports. It isn't just what we got used to was Serena Williams and Venus Williams 1-2.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of interesting points in this. So yeah, Forbes did their top 10 highest paid athletes, and it's an annual thing that they do. And like you said, I think it's normally dominated by tennis. So in 2019, it was actually all 10 of the top spots were tennis. Compared to this year, there's 5 tennis and then 5 others. So gymnastics features for the first time in a decade. Basketball features for the first time in a decade. It's also a record-breaking amount earned by female athletes this year. So a combined $167 million before taxes for last year. That was a 23% increase from 2020 and a 16% increase from the prior record of $143.3 million set in 2013. So that's quite positive news. But then there are a few caveats to that, like Naomi Osaka and Serena Williams account for virtually all of the increase. And if you compared the women's list to the men's, there's like absolutely no chance of the women featuring anywhere near the top in the men's list. So there's still a fair bit of disparity, but I think, they're earning more money than previously. So I think that is a good thing. But just to run through the top 10, number 1 is Naomi Osaka. I think she just has a lot of brand partners and sponsorships, and is, she had quite a lot of time out off the court last year, but still, won the Australian Open. So she's getting that prize money as well. Number 2 and 3, Serena and Venus Williams. They play less now, as we know, but again, I think the brand sponsorship deals and their involvement in the film King Richard has given them obviously a large amount of money. Simone Biles, number 4, like I mentioned before, gymnastics making the list again. Garbine Muguruza, the WTA final winner, There's 2 golfers featuring at number 6 and number 9. So Jin Young Ko, the South Korean golfer, at number 6, and Nelly Korda at number 9. PV Sindhu, the Indian badminton player, was at number 7. Ashley Barty at number 8. And then Candice Parker was the basketball representative at number 10. So a really interesting range of kind of countries and sports there. And I think it's, tennis has always been the most profitable sport, and the one with kind of the most gender equity. But it's, I think, good to see golf, basketball, gymnastics and badminton as well.
I was just going to say that was a really nice surprise to see the Indian player PV Sindhu, who's ranked number 7 now in the world in badminton. That's big news in itself that she's in the top 10. I really think that's something for badminton to be proud of as well. I'm thinking squash is not going to be very far behind. Now they have equality in that sport too. And as we know, there's a lot of Middle Eastern and Asian players there in squash. So terrific list. Very, very interesting how that's shaping out, as you said, across sports and across countries too. Well, we're going to move on we're going back down under now for this next story, and that's netball, the Quad Series final.
Yep. So the netball Quad Series series has been running in England, in London in particular, for the past week. So it features 4 of the best netball teams in the world. So England, Australia, South Africa and New Zealand. So England and Australia are the 2 teams that have made it to the final. The final is actually being played as we're recording, so I can't really give too much insight into how that went. But I think it's kind of just a really good preparation tournament for the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, which are happening this summer. I think England have been quite impressive, beating New Zealand in their second game, beating them 49-46. So quite a narrow win, but nonetheless, when you remember that New Zealand are world champions, I think that's a great confidence boost going into the Commonwealth Games. But Australia obviously have, been probably the most dominant force in netball for some years now. They didn't do that well at the World Cup, but I still think England will be hoping to basically repeat their success at the 2018 Commonwealth Games when they won in the final against Australia and got that last minute point and won a very dramatic gold medal. So it's, any kind of wins against the big nations in the run up to the Commonwealth Games will be a big boost. Yeah,
for sure. For sure. Well, we'll have the results for you next week here on the show. And a last story around the politics of sport is about the organisation that we often feature here on the news, and that's the International Council of Arbitration for Sport, because they're trying to get more gender equity amongst their membership.
Yeah, so they've produced the annual report giving details of their financial situation. So there's a lot of numbers there, but I think kind of the interesting aspect for us anyway was John Coates, who is the president of CAS, also a senior International Olympic Committee member. He gave an introductory message at the start of the presentation of the annual report, and he used that to urge sports bodies to propose more female candidates for CAS membership. So he highlighted the imbalance among CAS members. So it's currently 82% male and only 18% female, which isn't great. And when you think about the amount of influence that CAS does have over sport, any kind of legal dispute or big decision goes to CAS, and they a lot of the kind of big issues in sport, CAS have had some kind of influence over, obviously following kind of legal guidelines, but you still want those kind of big powerhouse organizations in sport to have a proper gender split to make sure kind of all interests are being represented. So I think that was a very significant point for Coates to make during his annual report, and hopefully it does actually happen.
Yeah, let's hope it happens. They've got a long way to go, as you said. Well, before we round up this week, I do want to mention that our two favourite Leos, Naya Tapper and Elana Meyers, they're actually playing for the USA Rugby Sevens, of course, and they're in Spain for a tournament this week and next. And I know some of you follow the Leo's Den podcast, which is a very popular podcast here. And the girls will be resuming that show when they get back from Spain next month. But yeah, shout out to them. They'll have, as I say, a couple of weeks with Spain, Dubai. They were in Dubai a few weeks ago. Now they're in Spain for the Rugby Sevens tournament. So good luck to them. And also to mention that Elana Meyers last week, Lo, was on the Try This podcast we recorded last week. It came out today, Tuesday. That's the Try This podcast with Dr. Kirsten Lawrence. And she was talking about nutrition and what works for her as a rugby player. So tune into that, Try This, wherever you listen to podcasts. And it was interesting listening to that, Nancy, when they recorded last week. This was before Lo left for Spain, that, what works for one player doesn't work. It's like anybody, really. Your nutrition is very unique. But she wanted to make that point because she will eat whatever she wants to eat, whatever fuel her body needs. She doesn't play by any rules, and she makes that point that, what works for her on the team might not work for any of her other teammates as well. And I think that's really important, isn't it? Because very often, especially young athletes, will look up to these role models and think they have to follow a trend.
Yeah, no, that sounds like it's a really interesting conversation. I think, like you said, everyone's body is different, and probably the person that knows their body best is the athlete themselves, and know what works for them. And I think that's great to hear, because I think you do in the past, there's been a lot of, I suppose, kind of one policy fits all kind of implemented on all athletes. And that's when I think you've, maybe had issues with kind of stuff like body image and eating disorders and stuff like that, because things just aren't working for athletes. And then, they have that pressure or that disappointment and the negative mental health side of it. So I think to have that approach is very refreshing and hopefully successful as well, and hopefully encourages other athletes to follow suit.
Yeah, and as Lo pointed out, that was not an informational podcast. This is just what works for her. So check that out. Try This on your podcast app, TRI, that is, or Wisp Sports. It's on our main channel as well, of course. And that about wraps it up for this week. And Nancy, just remind everybody where they can find you on social media and read what you're writing about on Give Me Sport Women.
Yep. So my Twitter handle is Nancy_Gillen. My Instagram handle is NancyGillen_sport. And then if you want to find what I'm writing about, it's on Give Me Sport Women, which can be found on Twitter at Give Me Sport W. And yeah, just kind of a lot of Australian Open this week, really. So if you're wanting to keep up to date with everything that's going on there, then I'll definitely give Me Sport W a follow.
All right. And, of course, we're at Wisp Sports on all social media channels, and at wispsports.com for the show notes and links to all the stories that we shared with you here this week. And that is it for this week. We'll have more tennis, we'll have more skiing, and a lot more before we get closer. We'll be just 1 week away then, won't we, Nancy, from the Winter Olympic Games. Will you get much coverage in England?
I think the BBC definitely have coverage. I think it's going to be the similar situation with Tokyo, actually, where they don't actually have the rights to show that much live sport. So it's kind of going to be like recap shows and stuff. But I think that would actually probably be perfect, to see the best bits and the highlights, and to have, that kind of digest, I suppose, every day. Yeah, and I've said this before, but I think it's always interesting to see how receptive the country is to kind of winter sports and whether it catches on, I suppose. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how popular it is.
All right, we'll bring you a recap, of course, here on the news desk next Wednesday. So until then, thank you all for listening. Stay safe out there, enjoy your sport, and thank you for listening.